Traditional Summer Breakup by Floating Bubblesque. Chapter 5. Everyone knew it, but not everyone connects things the way Shadow can. He sees the puzzle pieces where they fit. The strings between events and people, the lies and deceptions, and the coincidences that aren't so coincidental, all blending into a whole picture. He knows things. He figures them out. He's very good at it. But nobody ever believes him, even when he's obviously right. Like when he suggested that Midoriya was Nezu's secret child. All the signs were there, and he pointed them all out, and nobody listened. He even had backup theories, although they were much less likely and less believable, so he didn't offer them to anyone. They were undeserving of the darker, much more scandalous truths, anyway, since they couldn't handle the simple ones. First off, Midoriya was quirkless, everyone knew that. But he was also a genius. His notebooks were filled with such detailed analysis that he could frighten the entire League of Villains into disbanding and turning themselves in, if he only used it as blackmail material. He even had ruthless, practically bloodthirsty strategies hidden among his overwhelming amount of scribbles and diagrams and drawings and notes. Shoto asked to read one once, and he'd been scared ever since. Gouging out Aizawa's eyes, cutting off Uraraka's fingers, smoking out President Mike to choke his voice out, dousing Shoto in water so he gets frostbitten quicker, and then knocking his limbs apart. No thanks. He was not going to ask to read Izuku's notebooks ever again. But all of that sounded exactly like the way Nezu thinks. Since he was quirkless, Shoto figured that he might have been lab-grown too, and Nezu may have considered implanting quirks into him later, when it'd be most threatening and convenient. But he kept the lab-grown part of the theory to himself. As for his backup theories, Shoto also considered Aizawa and All For One as potential fathers for Midoriya. Aizawa adored Midoriya, even though he scolded him a lot. They even had the same evil grin sometimes. Aizawa was also the perfect choice to train Midoriya in all his weapons, since Aizawa has honed his quirkless fighting skills to mastery levels. The other backup theory was more scandalous, but still backed with evidence. All For One could have easily stolen Midoriya's quirk as a child, or Midoriya has his quirk and just never used it because he's too kind to steal quirks. Maybe he'd eventually steal one, for better or for worse. But even then, he may hide it for strategic advantage, since that's what Nezu would do, and they have the same brain. But nobody would listen to him about any of that. They wouldn't even concede to his palatable option of just a plain Nezu theory. So Shoto also knew that once he figured out what was wrong with Bakugo and Midoriya, none of them would listen until it was absolutely, entirely, completely, through and through irrefutable. And he was waiting for them to slip up. His current theories had to do with quirk accidents. Bakugo had been very focused on his notebook, and has started mumbling every so often. Just like Midoriya. He didn't get any more shy, so it wasn't a personality-swapping quirk. But it could have been something akin to a personality-infecting quirk, although Shoto wasn't sure if either of them were aware of the quirk at all. Another theory was to do with poltergeists, assuming his admittedly lacking knowledge of ghosts was correct, and possibly quirks related to ghosts. Midoriya could be haunting Bakugo, or possibly half-possessing him, for those small changes to happen. Similar to the ghost theory, Shoto also considered aliens. It was a much broader topic, since the alien theory could range from simple personality experiments to Midoriya being a parasitic alien slowly taking over Bakugo's mind. But he didn't mind lumping all of those mini-theories together for the moment. If this one ended up being true, he'd have to find a non-offensive way to explain it to Mina, though. His first breakthrough, though, happened on the first truly hot day of the year. Shoto was walking with Midoriya after class to the dorms, and he heard Bakugo shouting after them. Or he was at least shouting after Midoriya. Shoto had stopped and turned to see Bakugo sprinting towards them, only to turn back to Midoriya and see an empty space. Midoriya had just disappeared, and Bakugo sprinted past Shoto. This gave some credit to the ghost theory, in Shoto's opinion. After that day, nobody could ever find Midoriya anywhere outside unless they were outside of class. Immediately, when an outdoor class ended, Midoriya and Bakugo would sprint away. Bakugo would usually come back grumbling, and Midoriya would just be gone. It was like Midoriya had learned to teleport from building to building without anyone noticing, which gave some credit to Shoto's lab-grown and waiting for a quirk theory, or the all-for-one sun theory, or the ghost theory, or even the alien theory, if aliens had teleportation technology. In fact, he had to change the order of believability for a lot of his theories because of these new developments. The next breakthrough came up on the day that Kaminari and Mina somehow broke all the AC in both the class and dorm buildings, because the support department of UA was top tier, Nezu promised all the AC would be fixed within just 2 days. But even with that short time span, Shoto gathered enough black evidence for both his old theories and a few new ones, one of which was that Bakugo and Midoriya were dating. Honestly, he should have seen it sooner. He had no idea why nobody in class figured it out yet. Bakugo let Midoriya annoy him every day, when he'd normally blast the face off of anyone who dared to enter his personal space. Sure, everyone thought it was because he learned from Midoriya's stubbornness, but Shoto was sure that it was actually because Bakugo begrudgingly enjoyed Midoriya's attention. Because as soon as the AC was out, Midoriya began avoiding Bakugo, and Bakugo very clearly did not appreciate that. He got snappier at everyone, chased Midoriya every time he spotted him, and tried to sit by him in every class and at lunch. Shoto should have noticed Bakugo's clinginess when he started all the sprinting after Midoriya business, when they were all outside together. But it took him until lunch, when Bakugo shoved his pride away to sit at Midoriya's table, next to Shoto of all people, who he makes a point to dislike, and Midoriya was nowhere to be seen, for Shoto to really understand what was going on. Midoriya had also started avoiding the dorm's common areas, including the kitchen. Shoto was almost entirely certain that Midoriya was using the vents to move around unnoticed, because that's what Nezu's or Aizawa's secret child would do if they didn't want to be seen. Bakugo was constantly looking for him, even though he only occasionally asked if they'd seen Midoriya. With how much Midoriya was avoiding Bakugo, and how desperate Bakugo seemed to find him, Shoto added a new theory to his display board. There was very little evidence for why or how, but Shoto was certain of it. Midoriya and Bakugo recently broke up. He tried to tell the class the reason for Bakugo and Midoriya's recent strange behaviors, and once again, not a single person believed him, except maybe Aizawa. But that's to be expected of one of Midoriya's possible fathers. That was the end of chapter 5. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you again to Floating Bubblest for letting me podfic this. You should really listen to me and go give the fic a kudos. It deserves it. Please do it. I will keep hounding you to do it. Just do it already. Anyways, I hope you have a very nice rest of your day.